Hello, yes, this is your girl, Queen of Commentary, and we are back with another video. You guys, I'm coming back with some great content as far as wellness because, first of all, someone actually requested a wellness video. And I said, yeah, I have plenty of wellness videos. But anyway, I had to do this one because, guys, I stopped live streaming and going, I just did one because I just cut my hair. And I'm going to tell you guys a story about that too before we get into the content. But before we get into it, you know what to do. Thumbs up this video. Subscribe if you have not already. Okay? Cut your notifications on and leave us a comment. Now, I have pre-made this video for 12 minutes, but I can just know that this is going to be over 12 minutes. Okay? Yeah, I think so. But anyway. I started resting, or just saying, look, I'm going on a cortisol detox, okay, which is a stress hormone, back in April, okay? So whatever day this is, you just count from April to wherever you are listening to this. I am no longer circulating stress. And do you guys know that I actually lost about good 5 pounds? And of course I lost 2 more pounds because I cut my hair, my locks. I don't know if you guys knew it, but I was growing locks for years, for almost 8 years, and they weighed about 2 pounds. And I had I had jewelry in it, and my neck just couldn't handle it anymore after I started resting. So I had to get on here because I'm getting a little on the skinty side. Sort of, kind of. Nah, not really. But I have lost a lot of weight. And I said, you know what? I'm going to bless you guys on this channel about lowering your cortisol and the reason why you should. Back in the day, they used to tell us that stress will take you out of here. Okay? And there is a reason. It's a spiritual reason and it's a physical reason. Okay? The spiritual reason is God did not make us to fear or stress anything. Literally. Okay? There's nothing in our body that's like designated to produce like stress. The cortisol steals from your basically your hormones that are relaxing. Okay? And so, like, ladies, like, if you have a lot of issues with your reproductive situation, the cortisol actually takes away from your progesterone. Progesterone is to offset estrogen. If you do not have enough progesterone, your estrogen is going to be considered as dominant. Okay, so estrogen dominance doesn't necessarily mean that estrogen is like super duper high. It's just the dominant hormone over progesterone. And when you get in your 40s and things like that, progesterone is king or queen. Okay, it's very, very important for you to get that progesterone in, because if not, you're gonna be all over the place and have issues. Okay, so let's just talk about real quick. Cortisol, often referred to as a stress hormone, plays a significant role in how your body responds to stress. It is produced in the adrenal glands and helps regulate your metabolism, blood sugar, and inflammation. Okay, so it is produced in your adrenal glands. So to ladies who's going through menopause and things like that, just know that when the ovaries are no longer releasing eggs and things like that, and it's not releasing what it does, what it needs to do to keep us balanced, the adrenal glands, which is located right behind your kidneys, start to work. Now, by the time we get into our 50s, we have been running on cortisol for so long that the adrenal glands start to burn out. They might have burned out way back in your 40s. That's probably when you started getting the hot flashes and you started getting the irregular cycles and started getting heavy cycles. You're sweating and all of that back in your 40s, if you actually think about that. And that's when the adrenal glands start to burn out and you're not able to function well and everything. And so when menopause happens, if you don't have adrenal glands there to kick in and do what they need to do, then you're going to have a very, very difficult time during that. That's why menopause for some is more difficult than others. So what I am telling you now, if you're a person who is in their 40s or before the 40s, 30s, it doesn't matter. You can start preparing yourself where your body doesn't have to be burnt out. When you are burnt out, you're going to produce more cortisol, more adrenaline, and you're going to start to gain weight. Okay, that bloated weight, you start to look kind of like on a, real round. Your stomach starts to get big and things like that. You're like, oh, this is just age, it's just menopause. Then you look at some women who are on the fitness side and they're more on the wellness side, and they're like thin and nothing's happening. It's because they probably get that you have to do more things to calm your body down, like do some meditation and just, start to calm yourself during the day, because that's when our cortisols are high. And then it's supposed to dissipate, or it's supposed to get lower as the day goes on. But some of us, it doesn't do that. Sometimes we start to pick up during the nighttime. Why? Because we're mothers, we're wives, we're family people. We want to still have our own lives. We want to exercise. You want to do all of this stuff after 3 and 4, when the body naturally wants to start settling. So you're literally having cortisol all day, and then it's affecting your sleep. So what do? You start taking melatonin and things like that to compensate for the fact that you're not able to sleep. The one thing about melatonin, it starts to build up in your system and it doesn't work anymore. You become resistant. Okay. That's a whole nother subject. So when you're under stress, your adrenal glands release cortisol and adrenaline, which leads to an increase in glucose. Glucose is sugar. So unless you're a person who really keeps, a very close track to your glucose, which usually means you have diabetes, you really wouldn't know this. Anybody who's listening to this and you try to deal with your diabetes naturally, and you say, you know what, I'll have a salad, I'll skip the bread, and then you take your sugar and it's still high. You're like, what is going on? Why is my sugar still high? Or you may be on medication, taking your medication, and it still doesn't get to a good level. Then you have to go and you have to check your cortisol levels, which I don't think is a natural thing that a doctor will basically check. Okay, it's not gonna say, they're not gonna necessarily say, let me check your cortisol levels. No, you probably will have to request that, or maybe listening to this video, you can kind of see, do I have these symptoms that Jenna is talking about? Okay. Your primary source of energy is glucose, okay, and it is in your bloodstream. The process is essential for survival situations, and it creates a surge of energy in your body. Okay, so you always think, like a person like myself, I don't eat, breakfast, and people wonder, well, how is she able to still function and not eat? It's because my cortisol levels are always high. And so I'm working off of chemical. You know how they say you're just running off of fumes? Well, you don't want to do that. After a while, you start breaking down. Your muscle tone goes down. Therefore, more fat builds up on your body and things like that. I'm just keeping it 100, And so that's not what you want to do. You want to get more balanced. You want to get to the point where you're able to eat and actually process that food and get the nutrition and things like that. Chronic stress or conditions like Cushing's syndrome can cause cortisol levels to remain high. This can lead to several side effects, including, okay, so listen to these side effects: weight gain, okay, increased blood glucose and insulin levels. Cortisol increases blood glucose levels, which in turn increases blood insulin levels. So when you eat something, and it could be anything, your insulin levels automatically are going to spike to compensate for the sugar. And so eventually, if this has to constantly happen, you'll become insulin resistant. And a lot of people who have PCOS, okay, I was diagnosed with PCOS back when I was like 23 years old. It was just boom. But I changed my diet and I did a lot of things even back when I was in my 20s. And so those PCOS symptoms kind of dissipated and went away. And because that's basically what it is. You go in and they basically give you a whole diagnosis based on symptoms. And if you change your way that you live and the way that you eat and the way that you process stress, you can actually reverse some of those things, okay? Now, chronic stress may cause persistent high levels of insulin, which the body cells no longer respond correctly to insulin. And this can result in increased abdominal fat. So if you have a lot of abdominal fat, you're bloated, and it's like you have like a 5-month, 6-month pregnant stomach, it looks like you're pregnant, then that is an indicator that your cortisol is very high. Especially if you have your back field is in motion, if you will. If you have a big back field, That is also an indicator that you have a lot of issues with insulin and cortisol. Okay. Now, stimulation of fat and carbohydrate metabolism. Cortisol stimulates your fat and carbohydrate consumption or metabolism. While this process is essential for survival situations, it also increases your appetite. So if you have a very big appetite and you can never, get full, and you're craving all of these different high carbs and things like that, that is an indicator that your cortisol levels are elevated, and that will make you gain weight. So usually when I go through that, I go through the situation where I do a lower carb. You guys may call it a keto or whatever, but I do a lower carb. I stop the bread, I stop things, and all of a sudden things will start to get better for me. So when I eat too many carbs, it also will cause more cortisol in your body, okay? So if you're a person who always craves high fat foods or salty foods or sweet foods, that is a huge indicator that your cortisol levels are increased, or can be, or could be increased. Okay. Now, when we have a lot of cortisol in our bloodstream, excess cortisol and glucose production will lead to basically you converting that cortisol to fat storage. So it's like you're very stressed out and your body is like, what do you want me to do? And it'll start storing fat for a rainy day that never comes. You know what I mean? There's a saying out here that muscle is expensive for the body and fat is cheap. And so basically, fat stays around like, a roommate that doesn't want to pay rent. It just stays there. It doesn't take much for it to be there. You don't have to do a lot of work to build it up. Muscle is just the opposite. You have to do a lot of things in the correct order for you to build muscle, and you need muscle tone to build fat. To burn fat. When I was younger, I was like, man, I don't care if I lose muscle, because they said muscle weighs more than fat. So I was like, well, good. I don't want muscle then. I didn't understand. But now I do. Now, in my 40s, I am trying my best to build more muscle. And for me, I build more muscle, of course, when my cortisol levels are lower. Okay, I don't build muscle when I'm stressed out, because it's impossible. And so what happens is, even if you're a person who doesn't eat a lot, like I'm a person who has a low appetite, when I'm stressed out. Some people have a high appetite. Okay. And in both arenas are stressful in the body. Okay. So what happens is, when you're not eating, your body is going to basically burn the muscle. It's going to get rid of the muscle. It's not going to get rid of the fat. It's not going to live off the fat. That would be too good to be true, but yeah, it eats off the muscle. So when you say, oh, I'm losing weight, you're really losing muscle. And then when you start going back to your regular scheduled program, as far as what you're eating, you see the weight comes on, and sometimes it comes on double. Okay. Now, for example, people with serious metabolic conditions that involve excessive cortisol production, such as Cushing's syndrome, have an unhealthy increase in abdominal fat. Okay. And this will also lead to other conditions, high blood pressure. It can lead to diabetes type 2. It can lead to heart issues and things like that. So when you have a lot of abdominal fat, it's not time for you to get a girdle and suck it in. It's not time for you to say, okay, let me see if I can go and get this surgically removed. It is really time for you to say, you know what? Let me get that cortisol level down. Okay. And of course, overeating leads to an issue as well, guys. Overeating is not good. Okay. Because if you're putting too much into your body at one time, guess what? It's not going to be able to process it. And so it'll reject it. and it'll store it. It'll be like, you know what, maybe you want me to store this. And so when you're eating a lot of processed food, your body looks at it as a foreigner, like it doesn't know what to do. So you don't get any kind of nutrition. You know, back in the day, they would call fast food empty calories, because guess what? You place that in your body don't know what to do with it. So it'll just store it as what? Fat. Okay. And that fat will never go away. You'll have to really, really get into your cortisol levels and work down on that. If you're a person who has issues with your thyroid and all of that, you want to get that together and get that balance as well, because your thyroid also has a lot to do with everything, with cortisol, with metabolism, with stress, you know, with your sleep patterns, all of that. Okay, so I am your holistic practitioner, guys. If you're looking for more support on these topics, guys, you can always contact me, and all the information is in the description. I would love to work with you one-on-one. Okay. And thank you so much for listening, you guys. May this video reach you in wellness. And if it doesn't, I hope this video helps you to get to wellness. Thanks for listening.